Okay. All right, at 7 p.m., do I have a motion to return to open session?
So moved.
Second?
Mr. Roberts and Dr. Roundtree, any discussion? Ms. Reed, will you please call the roll?
Yes. Dr. Guitry,
Yes.
Ms. Pardon,
Yes.
Mr. Roberts,
Yes.
Dr. Roundtree,
Yes.
Ms. Purcell,
Yes.
7 in favor.
Motion carries. Do I have a motion to certify closed session that, to the best of each member's knowledge, only public business matters lawfully exempted from open meeting requirements by Virginia law were discussed in the closed meeting to which the certification applies, and only such public business matters as were identified in the motion convening the closed meeting were heard, discussed, or considered?
So moved.
Second?
Mr. Roberts and Dr. Roundtree, any discussion? Ms. Reed, will you please call the roll?
Ms. Bond?
Yes.
Ms. Franklin?
Yes.
Dr. Guitry?
Abstain because I wasn't there the whole time.
Mr. Roberts?
Yes.
Dr. Roundtree?
Yes.
Ms. Purcell? Ms.
Yes.
Pardon?
Oh, did Ms. Parton not get?
No, she
sorry.
just
Sorry,
skipped me. It's okay.
go ahead.
6 in favor, 1 abstain.
Motion carries. Do I have a motion to approve the personnel report as presented?
So moved.
Second?
Mr. Roberts and Dr. Roundtree, any discussion? Ms. Reed, will you please call the roll?
Ms. Bond?
Yes.
Franklin? No. Dr. Guitry?
Abstain.
Pardon?
Yes.
Mr. Roberts?
Yes.
Dr. Roundtree?
Yes.
Ms. Purcell?
Yes.
5 in favor, 1 opposed, 1 abstain.
Motion carries. Okay. We don't typically have honors, awards, and recognitions at our second meeting of the month, but because we're reaching the end of the school year and we had several special things occur, we wanted to make sure that those folks got their appropriate recognition. Our first item on the list is related to the Ask Childhood Cancer Foundation. The Ask Childhood Cancer Foundation is honoring all graduating seniors who've been followed by the Carillion Children's Pediatric Hematology and Oncology Clinic in Roanoke. The Ask Childhood Foundation is presenting 2 MCPS seniors with a scholarship in the amount of $1,000 each. And tonight, we have 1 student here to be recognized for this achievement. Dr. Lori Comer, Director of Secondary Education, will begin this recognition. Thank you, Dr. Comer.
Good evening, Madam Chair, school board members, and Dr. Gimple. Dr. Gimple and Mr. Gwynn recently received a letter from the Ask Childhood Cancer Foundation saying they would like to honor these graduating seniors that have been followed by Carillion Children's Pediatric Hematology and Oncology Clinic in Roanoke. This recognition celebrates their determination, their perseverance, and their accomplishments of these students as they reach this important milestone next Friday and Saturday. We have 2 students in Montgomery County that will be graduating this year. And as Chair Purcell mentioned, the Ask Childhood Foundation is presenting them both with a scholarship in the amount of $1,000 each. Tonight, we have one of the students joining us. At this time, we ask for Juliana Burks and her family to come forward. Please join me in congratulating Juliana on this milestone.
Next, We have the 2025-2026 Outstanding Teacher of the Gifted from Region 6 recognition. Helen Fatinos, Administrator of Gifted Programs, will begin this recognition. Thank you, Mrs. Fatinos.
Good evening, Madam Chair, members of the board, Dr. Gimple. It is my absolute pleasure to announce that Ms. Deanne Dickerson has been named to the 2025-2026 Outstanding Teacher of Gifted in Region 6 by the Virginia Association for the Gifted. As the gifted resource teacher at Harding Avenue Elementary School, Ms. Dickerson has a unique gift for inspiring young minds. In fact, one of her second grade students put it best by saying, "Ms. Dickerson makes you want to learn instead of feeling like you have to. She treats every student with kindness and respect. I love that she doesn't treat us like kids and motivates us to work out problems on our own." That ability to inspire independent, joyful learning is exactly what makes her an outstanding teacher. I would love to call Ms. Dickerson up right now to congratulate her. Thank you.
Next, Chris Stewart, principal of Blacksburg High School, will begin our recognition for Team 401 Copperhead Robotics. After this recognition during the break, the robotics team will do a demonstration for us.
All right. Good evening, members of the board. Dr. Gimple. It is my privilege to present the MCPS robotics team. I'd like to invite all of our students and our coaches up to the front, and I'll just read just a brief statement. So our MCPS robotics team competed in several FIRST robotics competitions this season, and they finished up their season just a few weeks ago in the World Championships. Montgomery County Public Schools own FRC Team 401 Copperhead Robotics achieved a major victory at the FIRST Robotics Championship in Houston, Texas, competing on the Hopper Field. Team 401 was awarded the prestigious Excellence in Engineering Award. They competed against more than 600 top-tier robotic teams representing 66 countries. The Excellence in Engineering Award, sponsored by Little Fuse, is given to the team whose robot has the most elegant and effective engineering solution. Copperhead Robotics stood out on the world stage because of their smart, innovative design and incredible attention to detail. This award is a testament to the students' technical skill and their ability to work together seamlessly to solve tough problems. Bringing this award home is a huge win for Montgomery County Public Schools. The 40-student team represents all 4 MCPS public high schools and is led by head coaches Michael Culver and Karen Stoll from Blacksburg High School and Christiansburg High School alumni assistant coaches Preston Childress and Brandon Landreth. The team credits its success to dedication, perseverance, and teamwork of its students, coaches, and mentors whose hard work throughout the season made the achievement possible. Now in its 27th competition season, Team 401 Copperhead Robotics continues to serve as a source of pride for the community, showcasing the power of local STEM education and student-driven innovation. Congratulations to this team.
All right, the board will now take a break to thank our honorees for being here today and to watch the demonstration provided by the robotics team. Is that going to be out in the foyer? Okay, great. So we'll meet you out there. Thank you all so much for being here. right. Our next item on the agenda is the public hearing for the fiscal year 2026-2027 school operating budget. The school board will now receive public comment on the proposed 2026-2027 school operating budget. I have no signups for this public hearing. So I'll move on to public address. Our next agenda item is public address. We welcome the opportunity to hear from students, parents, employees, and community members about education matters in this community. As a reminder, the board sets aside 30 minutes to start our public address. We have the option to extend in 30-minute increments, which Ms. Reed will remind us of. If there are additional speakers after 90 minutes, the board will continue with their business meeting and hold one additional 30-minute session at the end of the business meeting. The clock continues through applause and disruptions. The more disruptions there are, the fewer speakers who get to address the board. I will call each speaker up by name in the order that they signed up. Each speaker will have 3 minutes to address the board. The board does not respond to speakers during public address. The screens will show when the speaker has 30 seconds remaining and when time is up. Our first speaker tonight is Tanisha Poos, and that will be followed by Christopher Thomas. So, Ms. Poos, if you would please come up and state your name and the area of the county in which you live. Okay. Mr. Thomas?
Members of the board, Chris Thomas, Christiansburg. I'm largely convinced that the budget, like the calendar, is one of those reasons it's so bloody difficult to get people to run for school board. As we are in budget season, I'm sure you're all second guessing whatever altruistic motivations prompted you to throw your hat into the ring, but here we all are. I didn't want to bring this up in the budget address because I suspect it's outside the scope of this year's budget, but every so often I get up in front of this board and complain about budget transparency. This school system's books are open and available to the public in the strictest technical sense, but even with the aid of some pretty sophisticated data analysis tools, AI agents, and an attendance record at these meetings that rival some of the folks paid to be here, no offense, I can't make heads or tails of where the money is actually going in our school system, which means I kinda suspect you can't either. Our administration keeps books, and I've no doubt they're immaculately scrupulous. We've had 3 superintendents through here in the course of the last decade or so if something were criminally amiss, someone would have said something. But that doesn't mean we actually understand how we're spending our money. When this board considers budgets, it usually does so in terms of the difference between what we spent last year and what we're going to spend this year. New programs get detailed cost sheets. Old ones are barely a line item. I know I'm up here all the time asking this question, but what does it actually cost for Blacksburg High School to field a football team? Like, what does it really cost? I'm not saying we should cut it, but the administration, the board, the citizens of the county and all that should be able to answer that question. And I don't mean that there should be a CPA who works for the school system who can beat that figure out of QuickBooks in an afternoon. I mean that our budget disclosures should be such that any constituent, and certainly any board member, can question the cost-benefit ratio of any program in our school system. And likewise, we ought to be able to fully assess the utility of new programs and services in comparison to the costs of those we're already paying for. And I get it. Doing the work to expose that data isn't free. Someone has to collate it and scrub sensitive information from it. It has to get posted and hosted somewhere, and all that costs money. I believe in education. I believe everyone up here is on the up and up and just trying to do what's best for our county and our students. My friends on the right are a bit more suspicious, and they'll tell you that government has to earn trust by demonstrating trustworthiness, so it's natural and reasonable to suspect some shenanigans if you can't see where the money is going. And so, on this front, we really ought to be all in violent agreement. Open the books. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Thomas. And seeing no more signups for public address, we'll consider public address closed. We'll move on to consent items. If no one wishes to move an item out of consent, we'll consider these items approved. Our next item on the agenda are financial summary reports for April 2026. Do I have a motion to acknowledge receipt of the financial summary report for April 2026?
So moved.
Dr. Guitry and Ms. Bond? Any discussion? Ms. Reed, will you please call the roll?
Ms. Bond? Ms. Franklin? Dr. Guitry?
Yes.
Ms. Pardon?
Yes.
Mr. Roberts?
Yes.
Dr. Roundtree?
Yes.
Ms. Purcell?
Yes.
7 in favor.
Motion carries. Do I have a motion to approve the payment of the bills as presented?
Second.
Ms. Franklin and Dr. Roundtree, any discussion? Ms. Reed, will you please call the roll?
Ms. Bond?
Yes.
Ms. Franklin?
Yes.
Dr. Guitry?
Yes.
Ms. Pardon? Mr. Roberts?
Yes.
Dr. Roundtree?
Yes.
Ms. Purcell?
Yes.
7 in favor.
Motion carries. Okay, we'll move on to our business meeting. Dr. Kelly Gimple will provide his report from the superintendent, followed by his 90-day plan executive summary. Thank you, Dr. Gimple.
All right, thank you. I'm going to jump right to the 90-day summary. Tasha's pulling it up now, and just begin that. I think that's going to be long enough that that's probably all you want to hear from me tonight. I will say that I served on the panel for the issues and eggs from the Chamber of Commerce just last week. Great experience talking with other professionals, across the Commonwealth here and across our county about what our mental health issues are, not just with youth, but with adults, and how we can work together to kind of address those things. So it was a great session. There was 3 other panelists and about 15 questions. But I learned a lot from the other panelists, and I think the folks that attended learned a little bit about what we do as a division to support our students that are experiencing mental health issues. And so just a great session over there, and I just appreciate the invite and appreciate serving on that committee and on that board. It was fun. All right, so I'm going to give you my 90-day executive summary. So this is just a synopsis of what's gone on in my world since February. I will say that at the end of this, there's a lot of proposals and sort of just some ideas and some vision for moving forward. But right now, a lot of those are just proposals. It takes a whole team to work behind those things, and I've been very appreciative of our entire division during this 90 days and their support from all of our teachers and our staff and our principals. I've been up and down the hallways of our buildings numerous times, and I'm just seeing great things in our classrooms and really have enjoyed the experience. But let me go ahead and get into this. So this is in 3 different parts. The first one is really kind of in concert with what my opening plan was for the first 90 days, but it's talking about the engagement and exploration. You can go ahead, Tosh. So, we opened up with a bunch of listening sessions and at 7 of our different schools here, actually 8 of them. And then to the right, you see all the different folks I met with. And it was, I don't know, Tosh, maybe almost 100 people. I think I came into my office and sat down and were interviewed, either that or on Zoom or at different meetings I've gone to in different organizations that I've attended. Just great experience in trying to immerse myself in as much as possible of what goes on in Montgomery County and really get a gauge for how people feel about the job that our schools are doing in terms of educating and supporting our students and our teachers and just moving the mission forward. Here are some of the comments that I heard throughout this time, and I fed all the comments from my interviews that I recorded and also all the listening sessions that Andrew Webb recorded for me into a thematic analysis program, and it came up with a lot of different themes, but some of the things that stood out to me were expressed by the folks who attended those meetings are on this page. And this just speaks to how highly people just recognize the quality of life here in Montgomery County, and what our schools do to support that quality of life. Very positive overall. I must say, in almost every listening session, the overall sentiment was extremely positive of what our schools are doing to support kids, and just, what it means to live in Montgomery County and why they chose to live here and not some other place. So here's some data that came out of those listening sessions, and also the division leaders, the school board interviews, and interviews of just countless people. So almost 100% of the time, people talked about how proud they are to be in Montgomery County. And then some of it was just being proud that they were from Blacksburg, or proud that they're out in Auburn, or proud that they are in Eastern Montgomery or Christiansburg. But all of them, everyone, and every single session just expressed their pride in Montgomery County Public Schools and in the fact that they're living here. And also the importance of relationships was expressed 100% of the time, that folks feel supported and they like the way it feels like they're in a community that cares. Also 100% of the time, and this is where I get some marching orders, is the importance of increased communication, and not just communication, but really offering the why behind the things that we're doing and the decisions that we make. This means our social media needs to be a little bit better, and our websites need to be better, and just the information that's pumped out, like the gentleman had just mentioned about, how do we handle our division fiscally. Just being transparent was mentioned 100% of the time, and just making sure that folks are aware of what's going on, why we do the things we do, and just being open about those things. Consistency and alignment means that about 85% of the time, 90% of the time, folks talked about in those sessions the importance of making sure that there is consistency in the programs and the opportunities, regardless of where you live in this division. That if you live in Montgomery County Public Schools, you ought to have equal access to all the different things going on in our schools. And that also carries down to the next line, which is equity of access. Staffing and structural is talking about supporting our teachers and supporting our staff. The MCEA comes in there and making sure that our teachers have a great quality of life and a true work-life balance, and that we're behind that. Same thing with our structures, that they're up to date, and I heard that a lot from our Blacksburg elementary schools, of course, and some of the needs that take place out there in terms of the aging of buildings. Staff support and workload, again, that kind of fell into the same category, and you see the same number of times that's mentioned. Need to really focus on special education was one of the highlights there too. Making sure that all students have access to something that is preparing them for a viable future, and that we're focused on special education students as much as we are the kids that are going to a 4-year, 2-year college, or going to the military, or going to be gainfully employed, through our CTA programs, that our special education students also are exposed to things that are going to help them be successful in life. And then funding and governance, folks talked about, building that relationship with the folks that work in this building and making sure that our county government, really aligns with our school board and our school initiatives. And then policy modernization, which I think everybody knows that we're all about that here now. We're getting on top of that, and Lee is going to present a very good process for us getting on top of our policies. So some of the key insights and focus, again, strategic focus, that's going to help me with my marching orders over the next year or so. Again, 100% alignment on community strength and making sure that we are communicating, and we have a plan for that you'll see in a few minutes. 88% alignment on equity and making sure that we have consistency across all schools and amounts of our programs and our different opportunities for our students is consistent across all 4 areas and communities. 75% alignment on staffing and support, and making sure our teachers have everything they need as far as feeling supportive so that they want to work in Montgomery County Public Schools for their career. And then strong foundation with an opportunity to align our systems. Clear direction on strategic planning priorities. You're going to hear a little bit about this in the next couple slides. So here I have a short podcast. I'm always learning things, and so I'm getting into AI a little bit, and so I want to play this. We might not play the whole thing, but just to give you an idea, this is sort of a summary of my 90-day listening sessions. Go ahead, Tosh.
Hello and welcome to MCPS Conversations. I'm Blake.
Hi, I'm Adley. Today, we're taking a closer look at the work underway across Montgomery County Public Schools and what our new superintendent has learned about MCPS in his first 90 days on the job.
Since February 1st, when Dr. Kelly Gempel stepped into the role of superintendent, there has been a strong and intentional focus on listening. This has included visits to schools across the division, conversations with principals, assistant principals, counselors, and central office staff, as well as meeting with numerous civic leaders, advisories, and commissions from across Montgomery County.
Most importantly, there were 8 open listening sessions led by Dr. Gempel throughout the community, all designed to build a clear, shared understanding of what's working and where there is opportunity to grow and improve.
And when you look across everything that was shared, one theme stands out clearly: the strength of the MCPS community.
Participants consistently described Montgomery County Public Schools as a place that feels like home. Regardless of what strand they live in, they spoke about strong relationships, deep pride in their schools, and a shared commitment to supporting students.
What's especially important is that this message came from across the county, from staff, students, families, and community members alike. It points to a culture that is deeply connected and widely shared.
Exactly, and this is easily one of the division's greatest strengths. Alongside those strengths, participants also shared thoughtful insights about how the division can continue to grow.
One of the most consistent areas of focus was communication, and not just more communication, but communication that is clear, consistent, and transparent.
Dr. Gempel learned that people express the need for the kind of communication that helps people understand not just what decisions are being made, but why.
There was also a strong interest in increasing consistency across schools, and a focus on expanding access to opportunities, things like courses, programs, and extracurricular experiences that need to be available to all MCPS students.
Dr. Gempel said that this was not offered as a criticism, but as a shared interest in building on some of the great things already existing in MCPS and extending those opportunities to the benefit of all students.
Staff perspectives added important context to these themes for Dr. Gempel. Most importantly, there is a clear and consistent commitment to students across the division.
And at the same time, staff from across the division shared ideas about how systems and structures can better support that work. The input and participation by staff indicates an MCPS team that is both dedicated and invested in continuous improvement.
When you bring all of this together, a clear and encouraging insight emerges. Montgomery County Public Schools has a strong culture, an opportunity to further align systems with that strength.
It's not about starting over. It's about building forward. Based on the input gathered through Dr. Gempel's intensive engagement process, several priority areas have emerged.
Number 1 is enhancing communication and transparency.
Strengthening consistency across schools, as well as
Hello and welcome to
So it continues for a little while. It's not that much longer. This will be available on the website if you ever want to click on that. I also developed it into a movie the other day too, which is really cool, but I'll save that for another time. So go ahead on to the next slide here. So the next part about this is evaluate and design. So it's taking all the information that I learned through those 90 days and trying to come up with a really solid plan for us to move forward so that we can take this division to the next level. So started off when I first arrived here, and I have a couple boards in my office, and as things came up, I wrote them on the board, and I divided them into 3 different categories. And the first category was immediate goals. There were things that needed to be done within that first 90 days. And this is a sort of a short list of many of those things that we've already accomplished here. I won't go through all these, but you know, and this is not an exhaustive list. There's some other things on my boards in my office. But there's 2 other boards. One is a short-term and one is a long-term. The school board here is familiar with it. All my staff is familiar with it. And it kind of gives me my game plan for the things that we're working on and the things we've identified as a division and me as the superintendent of things that are going to help to move this division forward. So with the focus forward, there's 7 key leadership resolutions that I've come up with. The first one, The first one is establishing a positive professional climate of mutual trust. And this one really speaks about getting out there with communication and making sure that we are getting the word out about all the great things that are going on in our division. You'll notice that anytime something bad happens in this division, that the email that goes out has my name on it. Not somebody from my staff, not my communication director, nothing like that, because we're going to own it. And things are going to happen. We have 9,000 students. We have lots of staff running around. We have volunteers. We have coaches. We have all kinds of programs. And, you know, when something happens, you're going to hear about it. It's going to be transparent, and it is what it is. We're also going to provide what we're doing about it to prevent things from happening in the future that are similar. We also want to have plenty of opportunities for input, for how we can improve. Nothing I'm going to do is going to be made in a vacuum. I don't just make things up. I don't sit on my throne at night and twist my mustache and decide what to do going forward. It's through staff. It's through survey. I do want to have a parent and teacher and student advisory starting at the very beginning of the year. Those will be very valuable outlets for folks to speak up and talk to me about things that need to happen in this division from those different viewpoints, which I think are the most critical. Vector training means safeguarding our employees. That's something we've looked at. I've talked to Leah about that, and it's something we want to, and just to ensure that our teachers and our staff are trained in some of the critical things, like cybersecurity, like recognizing, sexual abuse, things that are critical to the operation here, providing our coaches with specific training to help them to be able to do their jobs and provide a safe environment for our students. Go on to the next one. The next strategic target is provide students with a clear vision of the future. This is so critical. I went into a class, I won't tell you what high school it was, but I spoke to some senior English students, and I asked that class, which of you are going to a 2 or 4 year college or community college next year? And this is a class of over 20 kids, and about 2 or 3 kids raised their hand. And then I asked, well, which of you are going into a vocation that you know? And I'm not talking about working at Walmart or working at a food place, but something that you've been trained for, you have credentials through CTE programs, you have certifications, and it's going to be your career. And I got a few more hands went up. And then I asked, okay, how many of you are going into the military? And yet, yes, we had a couple more hands. My next question was, how many of you seniors getting ready to graduate in the next 3 weeks don't have any idea what you're going to do when you leave here? And it was a majority of the hands. To me, that's trouble. That means we haven't effectively prepared our students for what they envision as their future. We've got to change that. So part of what you see on here is the CTE or MCPS 4E pathways, which includes CTE, but includes pathways to being enlisted, enrolled, employed, and yes, engaged. Engaged is about students who have disabilities that may not allow them to go to a 4-year or 2-year college, or may not allow them to get into the military, or allow them to take advantage of some of our vocations, but they also need a pathway to their future. Starts off with elementary and making sure that we provide mechanisms for our students to explore all of their strengths, interests, and develop some ideas of what they might want to be when they grow up. Middle school is about exposure. That's about field trips and having people come into our schools and talk about the places that they work, and to get kids excited and get a little hands-on experience with some of these vocations. And then by high school, we want kids to walk into high school with hope, with an idea that, you know what, I know exactly why I'm taking the classes I'm taking and where they're going to lead me. And I know that if my goal is to be in the league one day, which I heard from several kids at this particular high school, that I asked them, what do you want to do? And pretty good athletes, they said, oh, I'm going to be in the league. I said, oh, that's great. That means you're going to go to a 4-year college. Do you know why? Because about 98% of your Division I athletes, or excuse me, about 98% of your professional athletes came out of a Division I college. And do you understand that what it takes to go into a Division I college is usually about a 3.5 or above GPA? So that means you're going to be taking AP courses when you get to high school, right? So you're going to design your pathway with that goal in mind. Yes, it's great to be a great athlete, but guess what? Your goal is to be a Division I athlete at the Division I college, and that takes a certain amount of aptitude and hard work in the classroom as well. So it's about making sure that kids have an understanding of where they want to be at the end, and not just kids, but also their parents, which is maybe just as important, that those conversations across the dinner table are really truly about, why you're in the same classes as so-and-so and what goals you might have together and where you're going to be going once you graduate. You can go on to the next one. Next strategic target is recruit and retrain effective personnel. A big part of that, like I said, is our collective bargaining agreements and making sure that our teachers feel validated and valued in this division. I think that will go a long way. It's really focused on climate and culture at this point. And if that's the case, and if that's what retains our teachers, then we are all for it. We want our teachers to remain here. We have lost 144 teachers over the last 5 years. No, excuse me, over the last 3 years, Tom, and correct me if I'm wrong, in years 1 through 5 of their employment. 144 teachers in the last 3 years in their first 5 years of employment. That's got to stop. We've got to support our teachers more. We've got to get them to want to stay here. And I've got a couple ideas about that as far as using our retirees as coaches. And I do think the collective bargaining agreement can support people staying here and wanting to be employed here. Strategic target number 4, development of a comprehensive communication process. We've heard us talk about the Donovan Group. They came and did an outstanding presentation, I think, just last week. We've already enlisted their help. We've been using them for critical communication since the beginning of the year. They are offered through VAS as a free service. We've used them already through that, and that's where we became really enamored with their work. They're going to help with all kinds of things, from the web page to social media to outreach to recruiting, you name it. They're going to be involved a little bit in that, in helping us to really design a good outward-facing presence on social media and getting our communication story out. Those advisories I mentioned earlier should go a long way as well. We also want to pass a resolution. The board's aware of that so parents and students and teachers all have a sound understanding that if you have an issue here, here's who you should go to first to get that resolved in the most expedient way. So I've been talking about that for a little while, and that should come up here just a little bit later. We also want to make sure this board is informed on a more continual basis of exactly how our schools are performing in terms of grades, in terms of achievement, in terms of attendance, in terms of discipline, so that we can make adjustments and address these things on a timely basis. Strategic target number 5 is about organizational practice and procedures. The CIP, you can already see how we've embarked on a very comprehensive process with that, where we have committee members that are not part of our division that are included in this, that have an expertise in building. That's already going on. We had a very large facility study done that we're trying to break down 9,000 pages into a very sustainable and kind of a fluid document that'll help us to guide us through our CIP developments over the next 10 years, really, going up to 10 years. It'll also help with our relationship with the Board of Supervisors, as they know exactly what projects we have coming up and forecasted for the next year. We've already worked and embarked on a policy update and the way we're going to address those, and Lee is going to do a presentation on that here in a little bit. The school board now has experienced a new way of receiving our board packets, so they understand that the folks that we bring to them for hire, they see an entire background on those folks to help make sure that they're making informed decisions, and so that's gone over very well. Our board has been very active in meeting with me prior to presentations like this to kind of help me and my staff develop the best presentations for our public, so that you're getting all the information and that the information is really kind of polished up prior to the board meeting. So I want to thank the board for their involvement there. We're looking at maybe reviewing our disciplinary process and how we do our hearings. And so there's been a lot of things going on behind the scenes that the public may not know about, but a lot of hard work in trying to bring us up to speed on some of these issues. Strategic target number 6, and I only got one more after this, so bear with me. Maintain high visibility, engagement, accessibility. One of my very favorite things to do is to get into our hallways, get into our classrooms, meet our students, meet our parents. I'm going to continue to do that. That's not just the first 90-day things, but that's just part of being a superintendent. You don't know what's going on unless you're out there experiencing it. It's one thing to wait for emails that come across my desk, but it's much more powerful when I'm walking a hallway and a teacher pulls me aside and says, "Hey, Dr. Gimple, here's something you need to know," right? Or if I'm attending a Rotary event and someone from the public is informing of things. And also the positive things too, and telling me, "Hey, Dr. Gimple, this is going really well in your division," And then, it goes right along with the things that are negative, And I want to be available and be accessible. My door is open. If you send me an email, I do try and respond, within 2 days. If it's a weekend, I might be 3 days. It might be Monday till I get back to you, but I do try and get back to you, and not just a form response, but to give you a thoughtful response that lets you know that I'm actually considering what you've emailed me and what you mentioned, and looking into getting you a proper answer. The 4E Expo is something you can see at the bottom here. This is tied with those 4 E's, and it won't be called that. It'll be called something completely different. We're going to Montgomeryize it for sure. I've got Megan Arthur on it, when she's been, she and I have been meeting about this. We went and visited another CTE center, another area of the state, and was very impressed with that and a number of programs that they offered. But one of the things we want to do is provide a 4E Expo, which would bring together all 5th through 8th graders in the division under one roof, and provide an outlet for them to see every single thing that we offer in this county, so that there's more knowledge from our parents and from our students about all the opportunities that we offer. Ms. Franklin had a tremendous suggestion that we actually provide busing, that I work with, our transportation department to provide busing to this event. It's an evening event, but so that, get the maximum amount of people there, so that folks are aware, and I don't think they are quite aware of all the things, the great things that this county does all across the division to provide interesting and just outstanding opportunities for our students. And that's one way we can do that. And I'm talking everything from CTE to our advanced programs, even our mental health supports, all on display under one roof on one night to all 5th through 8th graders. Why 5th through 8th? Because by the time they enter high school, we want them to know what they're going to do. We want them to have hope entering 9th grade in a direction, a sense of direction, so that nobody is going through high school wondering, why am I taking these classes? Why am I here? That they all have a sense of direction. These are not pathways that are rigid and something that once you're on it, you can't get off it, and that's it. It's not, what was that word that we used to use? Not tracking, right? It's not tracking, but it's just exposing all the different pathways to a career once they leave us, so that all kids know. Because at the end of the day, it's all about employment, right? Whether you're going to go to a 4-year school, 2-year school, or whether you're going into the military, the end of that is you're going to be employed. And so we want to expose all these different pathways for that. All right, last one. Go ahead. Oh, budget and fiscal stewardship. I feel like we just heard something about that. And so this is the last area that I have listed here, and because it came out in many of my sessions, and it came out from talking to a lot of people, that we have to have a little bit more just exposure. And, one of the things we use in another division was called open checkbook, and it is kind of like the gentleman that came up here and spoke. It is a way for the public to just get in there and kind of look at your books and see exactly where money is spent every year. I do propose that we have 2 different committees, one that reviews financial statements. I would like people from the public to be on that committee, and also a MCPS finance board that kind of reviews things like, redoing Christiansburg High School. Now, if we had a committee that was providing some oversight of that, then any type of changes would be known already, right? We would have that published, and would be on the website, and everybody could see that way ahead of time, so nobody's ever surprised about what we're doing as good stewards of our taxpayers' money. We also have a great grant writer that's with us, who has done a great job of procuring money for us, and that should also be publicized, right? Where are we getting our fiscal support from? Not just from our county, not just from the state, but also for some of the great effort by our grants and cost-saving opportunities. This is pretty cool. This is from Notebook LM, and I just learned about this here over the last couple of weeks as I'm trying to gather just better ways to present to our board and to our public, and to kind of get up to speed with some of the stuff that our kids are producing in their classes. But Notebook LM just put together just an outstanding roadmap that kind of summarized all the things I just spoke about. So if you get a chance to review that, this is really just what you've just seen, but in a one-pager infographic, which I thought was just really cool, and I'm really excited about this. So I just thought it was really neat. Thank you, Leah, for teaching me how to use this. I really appreciate it. And that's it. Thank you very much. I do want to say, again, to the staff, and I'm talking about everybody on our staff, not just my folks at central office who are so committed and dedicated, but also everybody in their schools for being so receptive, and also to the school board for your support over the last 90 days. It's been nothing short of outstanding. Every one of these people up here are engaged. Nobody here has been elected and just sits back and let things happen. They are all engaged in the process, and I just want to say I really, really appreciate it. After serving in other areas and working in other school divisions and kind of seeing some things, I cannot tell you how much I appreciate the 7 of you, and also the Board of Supervisors for their support. I've met with every one of them now, at least for a little while. One of them just on Friday afternoon, and just great conversations. And again, I do think that everybody here in this county is about making sure that our kids have a great experience. And so glad to be here. Like I sat on the porch last night with my wife, and one of the things we said was, thank God we're in Montgomery County. We love it. So thank you.
Thank you so much, Dr. Gimple. Board members, are there any questions? I know it took a tremendous amount of time for you to put this together. You really put yourself out into the community in an intentional way, many, many hours, many evenings that you were out kind of getting to know the county and understand the needs, and then to try and prioritize them. And it's not an easy thing to do. So this, nearly 20-page slideshow makes it look a lot easier than the time and effort that went into it. So thank you. No other questions? Okay. Our next item on the agenda is the MCEA update. Katie Seidemann, MCEA President, will present an update from the Montgomery County Education Association. This is information and no action is expected. Thank you, Ms. Seidemann.
Thank you. Good evening, Chair Purcell, Dr. Gimple, and members of the board. Thank you for allowing me to be here tonight to present to you a report on behalf of the Montgomery County Education Association. First, on behalf of the MCEA, I would like to publicly thank all of our MCPS staff who will be retiring this year. We are so grateful for your service to our schools and our students, and we take pride in sharing such a worthy profession with such amazing educators. Secondly, I'd like to give the board an update on our collective bargaining negotiation progress. Our first scheduled negotiation meeting is next Friday, and we have been in conversations with Dr. Gimple and the MCPS negotiation team about the specifics in preparation for that meeting. We have shared with MCPS leadership our official topics for negotiation, one being hours and scheduling, two being health and safety. Within these two main topics, we will discuss and negotiate subtopics related to the working conditions of certified staff. We are excited to enter into these negotiations in good faith with MCPS, continuing the positive bargaining relationship we have had thus far. More specifically, we would like to send a huge thank you to the central office staff who have been so responsive and collaborative throughout this process. There can be quite a learning curve, as you well know, when it comes to learning how the collective bargaining process works, specifically how it applies to a school system, but the MCPS staff have been so communicative and efficient, and we truly appreciate their collaboration. Lastly, we would like to express our appreciation to the board for the work you have all had done with the Board of Supervisors in regards to the budget. We know that there is a lot of advocacy on your part for our schools, our staff, and our students, and we do not want to understate how important that advocacy is, particularly since the Board of Supervisors just recently approved a tax increase that will directly benefit our schools and our students. In looking over the proposed budget, we appreciate your consideration for each of the line items and your insistence that each line item serves a critical purpose for our schools. With that in mind, the budget priorities of the MCEA are aligned with the proposed 26-27 budget. Specifically, the 2% raise and step increase for all certified staff, the salary scale adjustments and step increase for all support staff, the investments proposed for staffing for our special education departments, and no increase in healthcare premium costs for employees. We very much appreciate your investment in the success of MCPS, particularly your investment in hiring and retaining quality staff. As many of you have previously said, a successful budget is a fully funded budget, and we are grateful that you are taking action to make sure that ours is. Thank you for your time this evening. What questions can I answer for you?
I don't have my mic on. I don't think there are any questions at this time. Thank you so much for coming out this evening.
Thank you.
Appreciate it. Okay. The next item on the agenda is a 2025-2026 meal debt update. Michelle Knotts, Supervisor of the School Nutrition Program, and Samantha Thompson, Parent Support Specialist, will provide information on meal debt for the 2025-2026 school year. This is a presentation and no action is required. Thank you, Ms. Knotts.
Board Chair, board members, Dr. Gimple, thank you for allowing us to be here today. I'd like to introduce to you Samantha Thompson. She is new in her role this year as a parent support specialist, and we are both excited to share with you an update as far as our current meal debt for MCPS. Samantha?
Good evening, members of the board and Dr. Gimple. I'm glad to be here. So as Michelle stated, I am new in this role. This role is actually new to MCPS. So I kind of wanted to start out letting you guys know what my weeks look like and kind of go from there. So basically my role as parent support specialist, one of the big things that I am trying to do this year is just outreach with our families, getting to know them, specific situations, really helping our families understand what meal benefits are available to them. And I started in September, so really hoping for the 26-27 school year to become involved early on. But what I really do, meal debt tracking and reaching out to families that might owe meal debt. And the way I do that is I start at a school in the morning, kind of have a schedule of what I do. I pull reports and I update a live tracker for our administration at the school level, along with I think a lot of the counselors and any admin assistants that assist administration with phone calls. And as you can see, like the collection procedures that I have, an email automatically goes out on Wednesday evenings, and that's to families that have a student with $5 or more in debt. A debt letter is sent weekly from the school to students that have $10 or more in debt. I make a focus of $50 or more myself, and that could just be calling, emailing. Usually I will follow up the phone call with an email if I don't get an answer, or if I do, what that conversation maybe have included as far as good faith to make a payment, or potentially any financial difficulties the family might be facing. And that's kind of going back to that tracker that I mentioned. It's a private document and there's a tab for each school, so that way I can communicate with administration and people that are involved at the school level with, hey, this family reached out to me and right now XYZ is going on with them, and that way they know not to call, I know not to call, and we kind of have a picture of what is going on with the family. And as you can see on the bottom with the school administrators, they're being very involved, especially as we're moving towards the end of the school year. May 29th is our last day, so really pushing to get a couple of big payments in the next week. I also support the school nutrition program with any type of operation needs. Came from higher education, food service, so I do understand the operational side of it as well. Like I stated earlier, one of the major things that I'd like to focus on in this upcoming school year is reaching out to more families, especially when their benefits are expiring or have expired, or families that have questions about the program. This year when I came in, I think I got between September and October, 60 families signed up and approved for free and reduced benefits, and that was on top of the applications that started coming in July 1 of 2025. And what I will do is say they get their application filled in the middle of the month, they are approved, all of their meal debt accrued during that month is forgiven. However, sometimes there is still a balance due, and what I will do is ask them if they'd like to set up a payment plan or if they are able to pay in full at that time. We work that out. Right now, I think I'm at 45% collected, and then the 55% outstanding for families that have meal benefits. And just kind of taking a look at the numbers this fall. Like I said, September, I started, I think, in the middle of that month. But the trend, as you can see, we do have less debt in the fall. And then this is what we're looking like in the spring as well. And then this is just the numbers laid out month by month. And you can see that it is a significant reduction in the debt that we had versus prior years. We also have to take into account we are having free breakfast. So I did pull debt numbers for just breakfast last year, and it was about $8,000. I think it was a little bit over that. So we do have to take in that into account. However, even with that added in, we're still sitting well under where we were last year. So on top of the education of families with USDA meal benefits, I just want to continue to meet people, introduce myself, be at back to school nights, answer any type of questions that I can. And one of the things that has come up in the last week is potentially working with the interpreters that we have available district-wide to reach out to families where there might be a language barrier. And that way I can understand situations that are going on, and maybe they can fully understand, for example, the USDA meal benefits that they could potentially be qualified for. And then, of course, continuing to decrease our debt district-wide. It's going to be another focus. Hopefully, we'll get it under where we're at this year. Does anybody have any questions for me?
Board members, any questions?
I'll just say, thank you for your efforts in communicating with our families, because as we've heard all tonight, communication can be key as to how we find solutions to issues. Thank you.
Yes, ma'am. Yep, and this position is still evolving. We're learning, talked to a couple of people, and it seems like there's not a lot of me's around in other districts, so it's kind of cool to, I don't know, be the guinea pig, I guess, in a way.
And I do think this is a great display of us being fiscally responsible, right? We have somebody that, if you look back at those numbers, that's a huge difference. You take out even the $8,000 for breakfast, you're still talking about over a $30,000 recoup, you know, just because of this young lady's efforts here and the things she has put together and working with our schools. And I think that's what we need to do, right? And I understand she's also very cognizant of the fact that, you know, some folks are experiencing difficulty, and that's not who she's calling and going after here, you know. Once she hears that, she works directly with the schools to make sure that they're aware. So it's also a way for us to help and address other types of issues in our schools. And she might be the first person to contact them that learns of an issue. And she's passing it on to our counselors and to our administrators so that they're aware. But on the other side of it, look at the money that she's recouped for this division. Just a great job, and thank you for your efforts on that.
Thank you.
I just had a question, and only because I know that when students come through the line, they use their number to put in. Is all of the debt that is accumulated on just meals, or does that a la carte items go into that debt ratio as well?
So it is just full meals, fully reimbursable meals. Charges for a la carte or like extra entree items, you have to have cash for that if you have a negative balance on your account.
Okay. I was hoping that would be the case.
Yeah, so they can get those items when they have cash if they have that negative balance. They're not prohibited from purchasing those items, but they are not allowed to charge them.
So even if there's a negative balance or they can still purchase even though they've got a negative balance?
Correct.
Okay. Have we looked into maybe adjusting that any?
When you mean adjusting?
Well, just in the sense of, I'm sure there's parents that maybe don't understand that maybe a child's putting that money on a la carte opposed to a debt that could be owed. And I'm just wondering if it's like if someone owed, let's say, $100 on their meal debt, but they're buying a la carte every day with cash, Is there any way that we could say, yeah, you can't buy that until your debt's paid? I mean,
We can certainly look into that.
that's just a comment and a question. I don't want any child to go without food. But
Sure.
again, that's, something that
I'm
just talking to my own child with my own grandchild, how much money they can spend with a la carte, So I just was wondering if we see an issue with that. Maybe
Sure.
we don't. I'm just asking.
And our cashiers, and a lot of times it's our managers are our cashiers too. If a child comes in with a large bill like that, even if it's $20 or $50, they will have that conversation.
Okay.
That
Gotcha.
this is this being applied to debt.
Right.
A lot of times I'll have a question brought up by staff. Yes, this child owes, $32 in meal debt, but they're coming in with $1 for ice cream day. And the instruction is, no, you are to honor that and they're to have that ice cream.
Right.
Because we don't know. We don't know if they did a great deed for grandma and grandma gave them $1 to
I
treat
understand
themselves on that
100%.
day, right?
I'm just, like I said, it's just kind of a follow-up question, just so I will know how that, if someone should ask me about it. But yeah, absolutely wouldn't want someone not to. Just was wondering how that worked.
Okay.
Okay, thanks.
You're welcome.
Well, against my better judgment, I'm going to open the can, and everybody can pile on me. This is not directed at you guys at all. Just seeing meal debt for children makes me bristle. And I appreciate how you guys are going about it. It looks like you're trying to find every way possible to inform our families that there may be some other options available. But if there was a way to get rid of this, I would. I'm not suggesting your job. Don't take it that way. But getting rid of the meal debt and hounding parents. The other thing that I'm going to say, and I'll shut up. A lot of parents don't care. They're not going to be compassionate. They're not going to be informed enough or, frankly, willing to put in an effort to apply for some of these things. So if I had my druthers, I'd say waive as much as you can. I know that's probably going to get something thrown at me, but that's where I stand on it. And
So one of the good things is we get lots of donations from folks throughout the county to help cover the meal debt.
Thank you so much. I'm equally ambivalent. I think it's wonderful that you're recuperating the funds here. While you're here, I'm going to ask a couple of questions. One is, one of the things that we wanted to do, and it's looking highly unlikely given where we are with the budget, is to provide lunch for all students. One of the concerns is that we have students who go to elementary schools where the food's covered because of the percentage that live in poverty in those schools, and then they go to a middle school and a high school, and those schools don't qualify. Can you help me to understand what happens to those children? And when you talk about there are options out here, can you tell, and that is not just for my benefit, but also for the public's benefit, like you've got an open mic here to explain what's available to our community members in order to make sure that they're fed, these children are fed, not just breakfast, but also lunch.
So I can briefly speak on this. Michelle would be the one to kind of give. She's a lot more background and knowledge on K through 12 and school nutrition and all of those things. But to answer kind of part of one of your questions is I am seeing where they went to a CEP school where they did not pay for their breakfast and lunch, and then going to the middle school, they did not realize that I thought it was for the middle school as well. So I think that having me in this role starting in August 1, when we're gearing up, is reaching out to families that have potentially the expiring benefits, or families that are potentially have the 5th going into 6th graders, and just kind of educating those families as far as the USDA meal benefit application that they could potentially qualify for. But just, I think, having the open communication and getting to know families, I will be able to educate them more. And it's confusing. And like I said, Michelle can speak to that a little bit more, I think.
Sorry to put you on the spot here, but we're in budget season, and we were gonna try to do over $1 million for lunch, and I think I would say it's impossible, but I'm not optimistic that we're gonna be able to fund everything, even if the state comes through.
Right.
So how do we ensure that children are not only getting breakfast but also lunch?
So as you know, district policy is every child will be fed if they come through the line. We have no way to know if they've packed a lunch or they haven't. We have to assume that they are hungry and they want that meal. So no child is ever denied. CEP schools, yes. The status of CEP, which is community eligibility provision, is school specific, does not travel with the child. So I think that is an opportunity, especially for this role right here for Samantha. It'd be fairly easy to track the families that are leaving a CEP school and going into one that is not eligible for that, and developing communication, relationship, introducing them to a free and reduced meal application because they may not have ever seen it before because they didn't have to. So I think definitely there will be more opportunity for that. Since I have the live mic and I just want to take this opportunity, historically what we've done with meal debt, we're trying, the donations have been, in some past years, 3 years ago, 2 years ago, they have been so helpful when we get anonymous donations, or not anonymous donations, but very helpful. The debt, when we come to the end of the school year, it has to be covered, and it cannot, by policy, be covered by the school nutrition fund. It has to be from another entity. Historically, that is the responsibility of the particular school. They pay down whatever debt is left over. So that could be coming out of an activities fund, that could be coming out of a general fund. So that's why Samantha's been working very closely and very well with the principals, especially because they know that, it's everybody's effort to try to get this debt down. But when it comes out of a fund like that, ultimately, as we all know, that just is a trickle-down effect and affects the students, because something else has got to be taken in order for these monies taken away from them to use these monies to be applied to meal debt. So I think we together, our team, we are constantly challenging ourselves on how can we get that message out there. This negatively affects the student body when we have to cover meal debt because we have to pull funds out of a general fund of the school.
Okay, great. And then the second question is there a significant gap for our students between those who are eligible and maybe just don't make the cutoff, but still struggle to pay for that lunch, for that meals? How significant is that population? So we know that there's a percentage of our population is going to be taken care of because they just need to apply for the benefits and they get the benefits. But how is there a gap there that the board should be aware of, where they might be struggling to pay for lunch, but they're not eligible because they just are over the threshold?
I couldn't give you exact numbers tonight, but we can certainly follow up with that. But yes, there definitely is that population that has just fallen above the income threshold to qualify for one of our programs. A lot of times, we have to, there's a process called verification, which is required annually. It's automatically done, it's hand selected, it's done electronically. Applications are pulled, and our team has to ask these families for verification of income. And if they can't produce that, we reach out to them on 3 separate occasions to try to get this information. And what I have seen since I've been here, and it's been 3 years now, that folks that are being pulled for verification, they have fallen out of that bracket. They now make too much money.
Yeah.
And that's a hard task of ours, because we have to then cancel that benefit. if they have been pulled for verification.
Yeah, because the poverty line is fairly low.
It is, and it changes every year.
Yeah. So I would be curious as we move forward to be able to identify that percentage of the students and what we can do for them in lieu of being able to provide all lunches for all students.
And
Because
that's
it's something that
Samantha
we should,
and I can work on
yeah.
putting something together like that, sure.
I'd appreciate that very much. Thank you so much.
You're welcome.
Other board members? Dr. Roundtree?
Yeah, sure. Yeah, so the first year that we managed to get that in the budget and paid for, we'll have a much better chance of keeping it in the budget moving forward. Unfortunately, we weren't able to get much of an increase in tax rates last year, and this year revenue's down. They did increase the taxes, and I very much appreciate that. The school being able to provide meals to all students, there's a large portion of our county that currently they can pay for a kid to have a meal. But the benefit is not just that student that day. Benefit also goes wider. The stress levels associated with parents that they're sending a kid to school, they have a job, they're doing all right. The next day they don't have a job, they at least know that their kid's going to get breakfast and lunch if we pay for it at school. We could do the same thing with medicine. I mean, we do have a medical program or a doctor's office program going into the East Montgomery school system, where we will be able to provide some medical services to students and to our staff as well in that facility. We could get that in all of our schools. The ability to know that kids are going to be taken care of. We want kids to thrive. We need to support them. And thank y'all.
Thank you both so much.
Thank you.
Really appreciate it. The next item on the agenda is Gifted Program Annual Report and Presentation. Helen Fatinos, Administrator of Gifted Programs, will present the Gifted Department Annual Review. This is a presentation and no action is required. Thank you, Mrs. Fatinos.
Thank you. Good evening again. Thank you for having me. And also thank you to the members of the Gifted Advisory Committee who are here tonight to support me. The items I'm going to share with you this evening are outlined in the Code of Virginia and in our Gifted Plan. So you can see on the slides which regulation is required. Before we get started, though, I would love to review just a little bit with you about our screening and identification process, so we level set that. Excuse me, I'm about to lose my voice, so it's end of year fun. Annually, we screen all of students K-8. That happens from August to January. All students are screened several ways. One manner is through the MAP test that is administered to all students 1 through 8 this year. Additionally, our teachers K through 8 fill out something called the HOPE scale. Having opportunities promotes excellence. It's meant to look for non-traditional students or behaviors in students who wouldn't normally stick out on an academic achievement assessment. And then gifted resource teachers go into many classrooms, but specifically second grade classrooms, and provide activities that would elicit gifted behaviors in a non-academic sense. Parents, teachers, and students can refer themselves. We have an open referral window from January 15th to March 1st. We do leave it open all year long, but the message shares with families that their referral will be looked at in that window, so that it's always available. And then once we have all that information, myself, the building administrator, and the gifted resource teacher review all student data from the entire building and look for students who may need to go further through in that process. Then we collect more data on those students and meet as a committee, a district-wide committee with all gifted resource teachers and 3 to 4 building administrators to go on a case-by-case basis and look at all of those students. And you'll see in a little bit, we looked at 110 student files this year. So this is our screening and selection process. As I said, this year we screened over 6,000 students. 108 students were referred for additional testing. 89 of those students were found to be eligible for gifted services. And then 13 of those students, we just didn't quite have enough data yet to say yes or no. So we placed them on something called monitor status, and we'll review their data going over the next school year and then revisit those case files. If you go through Power School, you can see how many students were flagged for gifted referral. You will see that there's a slight difference in the number of students, 117. That's because that accounts for the students that transferred into our district with a gifted ID already. So we honor those identifications from other districts. And this covers some ethnicity data and educational data for the students that we screened and served this year. This is just a summary of all gifted identified students throughout our district. So we have a total of 9,270 students enrolled when I made this file or this chart, and 1,141 of them have some sort of gifted identification. When we write our gifted plan, we write a number of goals and objectives that we want to try to achieve over the 5 years. And so I'll just share a little bit of progress over the goals that we work towards this school year. And just a reminder that this will be a part of the gifted advisory report next year so that they can look at the total amount of work we did over this school year, and they'll report out on that next year. But in our identification goal, I was able to give presentations I was invited to give presentations to the Elementary Advisory Committee and the Equity Advisory Committee just to be more transparent and informative of all of our different stakeholders. We also expanded our discovery program to second grade pilot at CPS, and we intend to continue to expand that next year. In our delivery of service, we provided training to all secondary honors English teachers, and I'll cover that a little bit more in the following slide. We also, the GRTs participated in monthly PLCs with grade level teachers this year. The teachers expressed that they wanted more targeted small group professional learning, and so we were able to provide exactly what they needed to in their professional learning communities. We had GRTs participate in state and national level conferences this year, most of them us giving presentations to other gifted resource teachers. And then finally, we piloted a new assessment this year in an effort to be more equitable in our identification process. So I look forward to digging into that data this summer when they provide it. And finally, we continued our efforts to just improve our communication through newsletters, open houses, and I hosted 2 book studies this year that I'll talk about a little bit more. The Code of Virginia requires that I provide you with a list of secondary courses, students enrolled in honors and AP courses, and then the number of gifted students in that course, so you can look through that at your leisure. While this is not part of the requirement of the presentation, I did feel like I wanted an opportunity to just brag about our students and their successes. So this year we had 25 high school students apply to the Summer Residential Governors Program. Based on our district enrollment, I'm allowed to nominate 12 students forward to the state level competition, and 8 of those students were accepted into programs. So they will go this summer for 3 weeks, live in a college campus, live in a dorm, practice going to college, but also get to take college level classes, do research with their peers, and then potentially publish that research and present it at state level conferences. We also support students going to academic governor schools, and thanks to your support, we will be supporting a brand new governor school this year. I'm very excited about that. So we send students to these 2 regional academic schools. This year, a total of 30 students will go. We were able to offer 24 seats this year, so we increased the number of applicants, and we have representatives from all 4 high schools attending both of these governor schools. The state asks me to report out to you the different types of professional learning that we offer. So annually, we train all MCPS students, teachers K-8 in the HOPE scales. So every member of a K-8 faculty gets trained on that. We also provided targeted professional development during collaboration time with our cluster teachers. So that's 70 elementary school teachers and 46 middle school teachers who get monthly or bi-monthly training. We also provided some targeted professional learning, as I said before, to our secondary ELA teachers. We brought in Dr. Emily Mofield as one of our nation's experts in secondary ELA, adding rigor and differentiation within an adopted curriculum. So we had 47 middle school and high school teachers participate in that. And then finally, the gifted department collaborated with the special ed department to offer a book study to teachers. We have 57 MCPS faculty and staff participate in a book study on the neurodiversity playbook by Dr. Matt Zakreski. And I thought it was really great that we collaborated together. And then just a few highlights, because I never will miss a chance to brag about students and about staff. As I said before, we had our second grade pilot for our Discovery program, so that's 122 students that received twice a month lessons from the gifted resource teacher at CPS. We hosted our second annual GAC Family Game Night. We had over 40 families participate. I also hosted a family book study, and so we met 4 times, including once with the author, and we had 6 families participate in that. And then we also offer a family onboarding session at the beginning of each school year, and we had 74 families participate in that. And I'm looking forward to even more engagement next year. Thank you for your time. Are there any questions I can answer for you?
Board members, any questions? Dr. Guitry?
Thank you so much. I won't pepper you with too many questions. So
I'm ready
you don't
for it,
lose
Dr.
lose
Guitry.
your voice. One of the things that I was curious about, and you don't, and maybe you could get the data to me, when you do the screening data analysis, that slide, where right now it's only showing the referrals, but not how many of those categories actually are ultimately identified. So that was one of the things I was curious
Yep,
about.
I can ask.
And then in addition to the students with disabilities, I'm curious about how many students who have 504s, because often the twice exceptionals get piped into
Yeah.
a 504 because they're actually high performing in a lot of subjects. So is that something that is normally tracked? Is that unusual to track 504 identification? Is that hard to track that?
I don't think it would be hard to identify how many students have a 504. I think it would be more challenging to identify how many of those 504s are academic versus like another health impairment. You
Yeah.
know, because if you have diabetes, you can also get a 504, or if you have a peanut allergy.
Right.
I will ask if we can break that out. And I'm happy to try to get it for you.
Okay, great. Yeah, that one, it is hard, but students who have ADHD and certain others,
Yeah, anxiety, all the
neurodivergence.
things.
So I'm glad to see you collaborating with the special ed department. Another thing that I was curious about is the percentage, and that's next, the total number of identified students by building. Wide divergence for some of our schools. So I'm noticing like in Eastern Montgomery Elementary, it's like 2%. It's low.
Yeah.
I don't want to single out that low
Sure.
percentage, but do you have, when you see that, do you funnel more resources, or do you analyze?
So I
Yeah.
can tell you that is the identified students. That is not the number of students who necessarily receive gifted services. So we recognize that number is statistically significant.
Yeah.
And we actively talent search, I guess is a good word for it, to
Yeah.
go out and ask those teachers, who are the stars in your class? Who are the students that seem to think differently? And again, that's coming from that HOPE scale. It's an 11-point scale. That looks for just those specific behaviors. And we pull those students and provide extra enrichment to them, even without a gifted identification. We send a letter to the parents, say, your child has been identified as someone who could benefit from extra enrichment. Would you be okay with them coming? We get permission. But I listened to a really interesting webinar recently about equity and identification, and the speaker used the word opportunity. And that's been sitting with me a lot lately, that there are students in our county who have very different opportunities. And so that is really my foundational belief as I'm creating this discovery program, is how am I providing the same opportunities at school for all students? And so I'm very hopeful that as these students grow, we're on year 2, so those students are now in grade, that I can somehow capture that data. I've been working with Dr. Dunleavy. Quantitative analysis is not really my strong suit, and statistics and I were not a friend in college. So I'm asking for help from others to help me come up with a way to quantify that data. And it is very challenging to qualify data with small humans, but I'm very hopeful that I can prove that what I'm doing in a in a number space is working. I can prove it qualitatively. I can certainly say that teachers, based on their feedback, are seeing children in a different way. And I think I've shared before, I'm going again to the National Conference, Gifted Conference, to present about discovery because people across the country are also seeing these same opportunity gaps and are looking for ways to bridge them. So Montgomery County is doing innovative work, and I'm hopeful that it will pay off.
Great.
So,
And then the final question, and this will be brief, the new assessment that's piloted, the NGAT,
Yeah.
or however,
So-
can you just tell me a little bit about that assessment
Absolutely.
and how it's
So in
better?
the Code of Virginia asks us to use multiple measures to identify a student. One would be an aptitude test and one would be an achievement test, that the difference being how does your brain work versus what does your brain know.
Yeah.
And so we use the MAP test currently as our screener, but it is an achievement test. And so we can go ahead and use that as our data point. So when we do move forward into identification, in the past we were giving the COGAT. It is very wordy and it is given in English. And again, that felt like an opportunity missed for us, that we weren't being thoughtful of all of our students. And so 2 years ago, I had the opportunity to meet Jack Naglieri, who is one of the great identification minds in the gifted world. And he had created something called the Naglieri Nonverbal Ability Test years ago. And we used that as a screener prior to MAP coming. But that was one nonverbal moment. And basically, it's like, how do these puzzle pieces fit together?
Yeah.
It is word-free, but I felt like that assessment was only identifying students who had visual spatial abilities. I would not have
Right.
qualified on that. I'm obviously a word person. He felt the same way, and so he created the Naglieri General Abilities Test. So it has a verbal, a quantitative, and a nonverbal section. And it's doing analogical thinking in each of those. But again, it is completely word-free. Even the directions are just pictures. And so every student, no matter what language they speak, no matter their reading level, can access that assessment. And I felt like that was just a much more thoughtful and, again, opportunity-based assessment.
Okay.
So I'm, again, this summer going to dig into that data and try to find some way to analyze it. Maybe AI and Notebook LM. Maybe Dr. Gimple will give me a lesson on AI on how to do that.
Okay, great. And just the final note, congratulations to your office for one of our GRTs being the
Yes.
Region 6 Gifted
Yes.
Teacher of the Year. So congratulations
I actually
to
have a student here who was awarded some pretty prestigious awards as well today, but we'll bring those back in the fall. So.
again, thank
Yeah,
you very
thank
much.
you so much. I'm proud of them.
Board members, other questions? Yep. Ms. Franklin?
So to follow up with the screening analysis, so like Dr. Gentry says, it doesn't show who actually was accepted.
Okay.
But it's, for me, it's always important to see out of how many students.
Sure. So out of this, the 117 was the total number screened, and then that was the students'
Right, but,
ethnic data. I will get the ID data to you.
okay. And then on, well, wait a minute. So when I say the number of students, it's what is our total number of students in this group of students? And
Sure.
this
So
was
the
screened.
total number of students screened is 6,883.
Okay.
So that's everybody K to 8 gets screened every year.
But by each group of students, have it broken down, not just the total number.
Okay.
By
You bet.
ethnicity.
Yes, ma'am.
put it that way. And on slide number 4, and it says referral window, how do students refer themselves?
There's a Google form on our website, and anybody can fill it out.
So at what age do you start,
I mean,
or what grade
I've
should I
never had
say?
a student actually nominate themselves. Usually it's a grown-up in their life that is working with them, but I don't know if you've hung out with kindergartners and first graders lately, but they can do just about anything on the computer. Anyone is eligible to refer themselves. Kindergarten, we have some barriers just based on what data we have from them. And so we don't tend to identify students until second grade. Research shows that your IQ settles out around age 7. And it also shows that that home opportunity versus school opportunity settles out around second grade. So we really hesitate to identify place an identification on a student prior to that. I never want to put a label on a kid that might hurt them later, right? And I've spoken with children, especially in middle school, who say, my teacher treats me differently because I have this label, I don't want it anymore. The parents are welcome to suspend that label or to remove it completely. I don't ever want to cause a child angst over that, but there are teachers who say, oh, well, you're gifted, so you can. That's not necessarily true. We have a lot of friends who have learning impairments, they have anxiety, they have attention issues, and a teacher doesn't necessarily see through that to what the child can do. That's part of our professional learning, but all that is a long way to say that we are cautious in identifying kindergarten and first grade students just because that home experience can often create imbalance in what is truly their ability versus what is their experiences. And so we provide a lot of enrichment groups at that age to try to make sure that all students are having equal opportunities. Did I answer your question? Maybe not at all.
No, no.
I went right off. Ask me again, I'll try again.
Okay, so how does a student know where and how to self-identify? I'll just use myself as an example. At one point, I was put in a classroom because children were tracked horribly, and it was like, no, and I had to explain and beg my mother to help her understand, this is not working for me, I'm not learning anything,
Right.
blah, blah, blah. But if there was some way that I could have done that myself, then I wouldn't have had to go through 6 weeks of trying to get adjusted.
I will say, having been a gifted resource teacher for over six and a half years, they come to you in the hallway and say, I think I should be one of your students. And that's when I just make a note on a Post-it note and I go and dig into their data. So I wouldn't necessarily take that child to a computer and say, let's fill out this form, because that's not what they're asking me. They're asking, come see me, right? Like, see me as the human I am. And then I would reach out to the parent and say, hey, your child has shown this aptitude, here's our form, here's our website. But at that point, I've already put them on my data spreadsheet. If a kid is coming up to me in the hallway and saying, here's an example. I had a student, she was in kindergarten, and every day she would come by and invite me to her birthday party that was Wizard of Oz themed. She wore red ruby slippers every day to school, and she would tell me all the details of her birthday party every day. And she's 5 years old, but she's speaking like she's 10th, 11th grader. And so I, quickly made a little note, checked in with her teacher and said, I need to make sure she's coming to my enrichment group. We're not gonna slap a label on her right then, but it's like a magnet. They know how to find you, I think, in schools for the most part. So hopefully, had there been a grown-up in your building at that time, you would have been able to go speak to them. I would welcome any other suggestions on how to educate children about that. We're doing our very best with parents by having these open houses. All parents and families were invited to participate in the book study. I put that out to all the principal updates to put in their parent newsletters. And every time I have a group of parents together, I walk them through this identification process so that they know where to get all those resources. But I can always do better. So if you have better ideas, I would love to hear them. Or if we can sit down and brainstorm together.
Okay, thank you.
Yep.
Yeah, so when I went over this earlier, I spot checked a couple just from memory of last year. I was glad to see that there is a lot more representation for some of the elementary schools.
Me too.
That was not there last year.
Yeah.
There was a lot more of those in the 1% type range than there are this year. So we still have some work to do there, I think, because there's not a huge difference from one to the other. I do have a basic question. This is percent of students identified. This is the percentage of the total students in the population. Slide.
This one?
Yeah. So that's the enrollment. We're identifying 20% of students this year, or
No,
is
this
this
is
total?
just everybody. So at Blacksburg Middle School today, or when I made the sheet, there were 930 students and 197 of them are identified as gifted. This is not this year's numbers.
Okay,
This
thanks.
is all the years. I can get you this year's numbers if that is what you would prefer.
Comparisons over year would be interesting.
Okay.
To be able to track.
You bet.
All right, thanks.
Any other questions, board members? Thank you, Mrs. Fortinos.
Thank you for the opportunity. Have a good evening.
Okay. Moving on, the next item on our agenda are proposed revisions to policy 7-5.1 about communicable diseases, and this is an action item. The administration provided draft revisions to policy 7-5.1, communicable diseases, on May 5th, 2026. The policy is presented tonight for approval. Jason Garrettson, Director of Student Services and Safety, is available for questions if needed. Do I have a motion to approve the proposed revisions to policy 7-5.1 as presented?
I'm second.
Dr. Roundtree and Mr. Roberts? Is there any discussion? You want to just call the question?
Yes.
All right. Ms. Reed, will you please call the roll?
Ms. Franklin,
Yes.
Ms. Pardon,
Yes.
Mr. Roberts,
Yes.
Dr. Roundtree,
Yes.
Ms. Purcell,
Yes.
5 in favor.
Motion carries. The next item on the agenda is proposed example policy revision process covering policies 2-1.1 and 2-2.1 through 2-2.8. The administration presented these policies for a first read on May 5th, 2026. The policies and policy revision process are brought back tonight for further discussion. They'll be presented for approval on June 16th, 2026. Leah Bressler, School Division Compliance Officer, is available for questions if needed, and no action is expected.
Good evening, Chair Purcell and board members, Dr. Gimple. I'm here to present tonight. We took to heart the board members' comments in our last session and also the subsequent discussions that have taken place with Dr. Gimple. What we think we've come back with is a process that takes into account all of your concerns. The policy is yours to do with as you'd like, and we want you to feel very comfortable with the process itself, as well as the policies that we land on. It is our intention tonight to present the process and then to kind of have a discussion on how you would like to move ahead. So moving right into it, modernizing the MCPS policy manual.
Oh, thank you.
Okay, the first slide will show you that kind of the critical steps that were going to take place. So the first thing that will happen with a policy that we're bringing to revision is you will get that policy as a board distribution, not as a first read, but just simply a distribution. That will occur after the policies have been vetted in-house by our staff. Once you get that, you'll have 1 month to come in and look at that policy and review it. You can ask questions, you could submit your comments, any suggestions you have. After that period, we'll finally bring it for a first read. Once the first read is with you, we'll bring it back. That's your time to debate and to have any argument you'd like or discussion, deliberation. We'll take those suggestions and comments, incorporate them, and bring it back for a second read and ready for your approval. We've created 2 specialized tools for this big, giant mission we're about to embark on. The first tool is the policy review calendar. Its primary function is for you all to track what's coming. You will use it, this will ensure that you know exactly when a policy hits the critical milestones in our process. The second tool we've created is the MCPS policy checklist. And the policy checklist is going to ensure that the board knows which staff members are recommending and who is leading the update. So on the policy review calendar, you're going to use this, consult this document anytime you just want to get a kind of a big brush of what's coming and where it's headed, which policies specifically are coming at you, and where we are in that process. It'll be a very brief calendar. We're going to show it here at the end of the presentation. The second document we created is the policy checklist, and this is where the detail you'll find. And in this checklist, which will give you guys the access to, the staff are going to have both the current policy that we have, then what they're going to see is a column, and there'll be hyperlinks so that they can click on that. Then there'll be a column with hyperlinks to the model VSBA policy. We're not suggesting a supplementation. We've heard from the board, and we're working with you all to make the policies your own. We're going to have the staff take a look at those VSBA model policies only because they've been vetted by lawyers and they are up to date with 2026 law. And we want that there as a reference and a guide to kind of see and say, oh, wow, looks like a lot has changed in the last 4 years since the last policy, so that the staff are aware of what's going on. Then you're going to see a third column that is currently blank. We're going to fill that with the proposed policies. That way, that's not the VSBA policy, but our staff proposed policy after they've looked at both what we have currently, the model VSBA, and then get to think about and vet that policy with their teams. They're going to write a new policy for you and put it in that proposed policy. So this kind of gives you a brief overlay of those two documents. It just gives you kind of the what you're looking for. So if you want to know who's the lead staff member on the document, that's a checklist. If you want to know when the next policy is coming over, you can look at the calendar. This is a roadmap, and it kind of gives you that process that we just talked about. So we're going to start with that internal review and tracking, move it along to a public calendar notification that notifies you and the public. We can post that on our website so that they are always seeing what policies are coming and where we are in the process. The clarification window process happens during that month period. Then we bring it back for that first read, and then hopefully a second read. So we're hoping that this structured approach, what we'd like to do is kind of hit the brakes, do the approach. We've listened to your comments and feedbacks. I'm going to show you the forms now. Tosh, would you bring up our calendar? This is a copy of our calendar, so you can just see what the current policy is, what the proposed policy is, and then what's coming ahead. And Tosh, if you wouldn't mind bringing up our checklist. This is the document I think that'll be more interesting to you guys. When you look at this document, my vision is terrible, so I'm going to try to read this from afar. But you can see what I was talking about in the blue. Right there, that's our current MCPS policy. You'll be able to click through and see what's already there. You'll also be able to click on the counterpart, if there is one, to the VSBA, just so you can see what the model policy looks like throughout the state, not that you have to adopt it. And then that third column that's currently blank, until we get your thoughts on this process, is where we're going to put the proposed policy that are vetted through staff. But as you can see in the remaining categories that are on that list, it gives you the information about whether the staff feels we're ready for a recommendation, whether it lets you know who the leads are, so that when we get into that clarification window, we know who to bring to the table to answer the questions. Our division suggestion tonight is that we pull Section 2 from your purview tonight and go through this process as our first process. Bring these back to you for that board review window in June. Allow this process to take place over the summer month. When we have some downtime, you don't have a meeting in July. So that gives us a little extra time to kind of get this process worked out in Section 2. And then that way, when we come back in August, we can do maybe a first read. and then an immediate second read, hopefully, because we'll have all these worked out. 2 is a voluminous section, and I heard feedback, and so I think taking into consideration everybody's workloads and what's going on, and the seriousness of the policies, and how near and dear they are for the board, and for you to have your voice in them. I think right now we'd like to hit the brakes, if you like the process, see how it works over the summer, and then that puts us back in section 3, which is fiscal responsibility in the fall once everybody's back. And I think that's a good measure, but I'd love to hear from you all about it and see what you think about the process and our suggestions here tonight. Policy 151, that's the committee policy. So, and that one is really up to you guys. So, does anyone have any questions? Comments, suggestions?
So I don't have any, everyone knows where I stand on this. I'm not going to beat that dead horse. This is fantastic. I absolutely love the calendar. I think the timeline we've got set up here gives everybody plenty of time to review everything, ask whatever questions they need to ask. I back this fully. And one thing, I said this last time, but this is a huge amount of work, and you really need to be thanked publicly for kind of spearheading this, because I know how much you've put into it. So thank you very much. It is deeply appreciated, and I'm behind this 100%.
Dr. Roundtree?
Yeah, thank you. This looks great. I love the tracking in this checklist that's available. The one question I did have is the checklist available in board docs right now, or did I miss it, or?
Right now, I just have the other one in there.
Okay,
but
just the calendar.
Yes.
Okay, yeah, I saw the calendar. I didn't see the checklist in there. Okay, so I wasn't missing it.
We were crafting this checklist pretty late in the process. We tried to really incorporate everybody's feedback as it's come in since the last meeting, and we really wanted to make sure it reflected what you all want. The policy manual is yours.
Yeah. This looks like a much better way for us to track what the current things are, what the models are by the VSBA, and then the proposed policy in order to help keep us organized as a board. Yeah, it looks great. Thank you.
Lincoln?
Yeah, I love the being able to see our policy, VSBA policy, and then what the proposed policy is all in one place.
Yep.
Because I was going crazy clicking back and forth. So thank you.
Other board members? Ms. Barton?
Yeah, thank you. Leah, this is a tremendous amount of work, and I know we have a tremendous amount of work in front of us, but this seems super fair to everyone, to you guys and to us. Just reflecting on what I've heard my board members mention in previous meetings. The way you've got this set up in the checklist makes it so easy for us to be able to go from current to VSBA, and we've got the dates and we've got comments, and so I know you've taken a lot of time to do this, and I can't tell you how much I appreciate it. It's going to make it a whole lot easier for me. I know that. So just thank you, and I think this would be a great way to start and continue this process. So thank you very much.
Just thanks as well. Looks great.
Thank you for all your work. So a couple of thoughts and questions. So all the policies need to be reviewed every 5 years.
Mm-hmm.
Have you talked about, okay, so let's say we go through all the policies in 2026, 27, then 5 years we'll have to go through the entire process again. Have you discussed or thought through staggering it so that you're doing chunks over a slightly longer period of time, and that way when it comes to the review, you're not having to review the whole policy manual at the same time?
Very much so. One of the columns in our spreadsheet is the year of the policy. So one example would be the student conduct policy. That's really going to be up to the board whether you want to do that again or not. We've already done that. And there are many policies. I can't tell you off the top of my head how many, but I've seen several that are within that 5-year window. So it would be up to the board, and we can skip those for now, just in the sense of brevity, and just attack the ones right now. What I'd like to do is, as we're building the spreadsheet, is go ahead and just build it with all of our policies so that those dates are in there and that we're keeping, that's why we're putting that column in there with the year there, so that we're constantly keeping that in our purview here going forward. So hopefully we'll end up with somewhat of a staggered, but yes, I think we need to really bring back these policies, maybe next year for some of them. Because this process, it's going to be hard to get through all of these policies in 1 year. We talked about the timing of that last time. And so I think by having the year there, that'll give you guys kind of an idea of what's coming and what you want to focus on. And this spreadsheet, once it's all built out, will really give the power to you all. You can say, hey, you know what? This section, 50% of it's fine. We're only going to address this part. Because that's out of a compliance, and it'll allow you to skip around if you need to. But it'll let you drive the train a little bit easier. But yes, sir, we are very, very keeping right up in the forefront that we do not ever want to end up in this position again. And so this tracker will end up living a long life. It's not just for this cycle. This is a living, continuous document.
Yeah, I appreciate that. I do wonder, so yeah, there are policies we've updated in the last several years, and we don't need to review those.
Correct.
But if we do the whole policy manual in 26, 27, 5 years from now, we'll go through the whole process again. And so I was like, should we be staggering it so that over a 5-year period, you're going through all of the policies and doing that basic review, so you'd never have that, we're facing a year. I was like, oh my goodness, we need to review all of our policies again because it's been 5 years. So I was just thinking about
Well, when you think about Section 2, for example, we're going to start that with you all getting that one in June, right? But then you've got to have a month to preview, and then it's going to take some time to get through the policy. So for just Section 2, if you look at what we're doing, it's going to be 3 or 4 months, and that's if we go right through and there's no slowdown. And 2, as you saw, is pretty voluminous. 3 is bigger, and they get bigger after that. And so, again, I would go back to the idea that I don't see a mathematical way that, given the process, that we get even close to getting through the policy manual in 1 year. So I think the process itself is going to do what you're talking about. It's going to stagger this out.
Okay, yeah, so I was wondering if there was like a longer schedule, because I know, and you're going to build that out. A couple of other things. So I was looking again, I think we're closer to what the policy manual says for the process. And I just want to get your thoughts on, to make sure that I'm understanding this. So the way that the policy is written, that there's a recommendation, and to the superintendent and to the board or to the board chair, it's distributed to the school board, but then the school board directs the administration on what to do. So it seemed, when I was going through the slide deck, that the idea is that the board doesn't actually direct the administration, but just is able to, over that month period, to ask questions. So as I was reading and comparing it to the policy for the revisions, it didn't seem to, it's closer. And the reason I'm asking that, because I thought that we need to prepare for Section 2, there were several policies that I actually flagged. I was like, oh, we should talk, because we would need to give direction to the administration if there was a consensus for the board. Because you're always, the administration is always acting on behalf of the board. So the board gives direction. And so that's what I'm wondering about. Yeah.
So you do have that capability, right? It's part of you coming in and having those discussions and providing feedback, both first individually, right? You'll be meeting with our different department leaders, because we're gonna work down to whoever it impacts, ask questions so that you're ensured that we've gone back through our staff And we've asked them about these policies that most impact them, and then you'll also have impact on shaping those policies, right? First individually, and then once you get to the, first reading, that's when you can open these things also up to discussion, and they can be augmented even more, right? So there'll be that opportunity is kind of built in during those 20 days.
Right, but that's only with individual board members, but the policy is not written that way, and the way that it's written is that the board as a board directs the administration on what to do in the next steps. So I think the calendar is good, and having that process in place.
Yeah, so that would be this meeting right here, and you guys agreeing that you're directing us to follow this process going forward to get us up to date on these policies.
Right, but it doesn't follow what the board policy is on revising or amending board policy.
So what we're asking you to do is to direct us now to use this.
Well, then
going forward. So in other words, you're following your policy because you as a board will agree that this is the practice that we're going to use to go forward, mainly in the fact that we're so far behind.
I appreciate that, but so ultimately would be to suspend the policy, because if it doesn't comply with the policy, then a decision has to be made what to do with the policy. So that would be up to the board. There would either have to, would you like to jump in?
I would. You don't get to pick and choose what you ignore. And that's what's happened here. We have to come back into compliance. We can't just say, hey, I like this policy and then ignore everything else. Compliance first. And here's the other part about the calendar that I really like. We're able to space this out, and it's going to naturally fall into place and let the next group of people follow along with it. And that has to be number one. We've got to get back into compliance. We can't just say, I'm upset about suspending one particular policy to ignore getting back into where we need to be. And that's where I am with this. We've got to do it.
Right, well, so the board policy is what directs our activities. So it's not about picking or choosing. I know that we need to come into compliance. So the administration at the board's direction can put forward a motion to suspend that policy, but it's important that we honor the policy. I know we need to come into compliance, but we can't just say, oh, what we want to do doesn't quite comply, so we'll just move forward at the board's direction. The board is compelled by board policy, just like our employees are, just like students are, just like parents are. That can come forward, but that's a formal board action. It's not something that you just do informally.
May I respond real quick? I disagree with your assertion that this plan doesn't have the board directing, because when the staff is bringing the policy, we've vetted it through our team before it gets to you for that month review. And that month review is there for you to come in, have those conversations, but on the first read, you are directing. You can tell us, hey, I don't want this policy. I do want this policy. Change section 1, replace section 3. And so what we're doing is we're giving you that month to come in and ask questions after it's been published, so that you have the full information to go into that first read and change it up if you want. It's your policy. But absolutely direct us. And then the final read comes in the second read after your direction. And that's why nothing gets passed without your direction. And so you're involved both before the final read and at the first read with your debate and your instruction, directing us how to bring it back for a second read for passage.
One thing I do want to clarify, I'm sorry, go ahead.
So I absolutely agree with what you said. And it seems like we have a policy change that we do need to make. As Dr. Gimple just was saying, we changed policy, 1.1-51, so that it reads that the board will follow this process for reviewing policy. And then that gets us away from the whole board from its stating specifically for your interpretation that at one time, the whole board comes back and directs the superintendent and the administration to go through and do this. Because it's what the process is right now is saying exactly that. It's your interpretation as to this not being board directed, the process that's in front of us now. So if we need to go and change the policy that says this policy review checklist is what the board will follow for policy review, then that's what we need to do. And I'm more than willing to make that motion.
Okay, can I respond now since two people? So I'm just gonna, I'm just one board member. If you all want to go forward, you can. I'm just gonna read you, it's just several sentences. I'm not just making this up. Policy proposals and suggested amendments to or revisions of existing policies shall be submitted to the division superintendent and/or the school board chair in writing at least 4 weeks prior to a regularly scheduled school board meeting in which such proposals, policies, amendments, and revisions shall be read and discussed. The division superintendent and school board will share these suggestions to all school board members at the direction of the board, which means not just individual, but the direction of the board. The superintendent will work with the appropriate staff to prepare such policy for school board deliberation. So it's not, I mean, it's just the plain language. If you all want to change that, you can change it. That's fine.
Dr. Gitry, your original suggestion, though, what I heard was that you said, we can't suspend the policy. It doesn't need to be in writing unless it's not a unanimous vote. So if we get a unanimous vote, you guys can vote to suspend that policy now by unanimous vote and use the process that we're using here. If anybody would want to make that,
Well, I'm right there, but one thing I do want to make abundantly clear, I do not see this as usurping any authority or power whatsoever. The ultimate decision still remains with us on what to do with it.
And there's a fairly clear timeline. And we asked the division to bring this to us. We didn't provide them with a calendar.
You can do whatever. The board can do what it wants. I appreciate that. I think we're getting closer. I was trying to reconcile even some of the dates with what this says here. I'm just one board member. I'm just pointing out this is my reading of the plain language. You can do what you want. That's fine.
And I'll say, Dr. Gitry, your oversight has been very helpful too in making sure that you're using a process that is, that is proper and viable, and that we're doing what we're supposed to be doing. So you do have an option if someone wants to propose it, that we suspend the policy in order to move forward on this. It has to be unanimous vote though.
Right, and the reason, I'll give you a practical reason why I'm suggesting this, is that, so I did because we want to give that time for the staff to work on things. I flagged a couple of things in the policy that I think that needs to be developed. And the thing is, it's one thing for me just to go in the office and be like, I think we need to add a policy or regulation. It's another thing if the board says we need a policy or regulation. And so that's why the policy is written the way it is. So for instance, one of the things that I flagged was that there's supposed to be on 237 on community relations, that there is, this is an example of how every year a policy is supposed to be reviewed, and there are instructions on that review, and I was wondering how that was going to happen if we're reviewing that policy. So there's at the very end in policy review, it talks about what's supposed to happen in that process. Another thing that I flagged was we have something on fundraisers. One of the things that I've heard from one parent is that if you're in athletics, that you have to participate in fundraisers, and there was concern about that process. We don't have a regulation, so under that policy, I was going to recommend, that's 223, that the board directs the administration to come up with regulations on third-party vendors who are used because there's concern about privacy and people and students having to give their phone numbers and their names to third parties. So I actually went through too, and I was like, there are a few areas, but I'm only a board member. I can't go to the administration and say, I would like for you to write regulations for third-party vendors for fundraisers. And so if it comes to us as a first read, well, at that point, you know, your staff has already worked on whatever revisions there are. So it's to get that feedback, that input before the revisions of a policy. So that's why I was suggesting that we consider the policy as it's written. But I'll
Dr. Guitry, I think that's one of the reasons we created the calendar, because that way you can see that, for example, Section 3 is coming back to you in September, August, somewhere in there, when we publish that calendar, so that you can start with that direction. Before it even hits, before we even give you the proposed month window, you're going to know that that's coming 2 months from now. We're giving you that heads up. That's what the calendar's for.
That's great. So when can the board talk about 2? And if we want to make any suggestions?
So
What we'd like to do is come back and present our proposals on 2 in the June meeting. So if you have thoughts or ideas, I would provide those to Dr. Gimple ahead of that.
Is that for the first reading, or is that for the initial
That's for
proposal?
your proposed month.
Okay, because I was looking at the schedule and it said first reading was on, for section 2 was,
Those will all change if the board wants the process. That's what, when I first came up, what I suggested, what the division wanted to do is, we were ready to go on 2 with VSBA because of the way 2 is.
yeah.
But we heard back from you, took your feedback into account, and so that's the first thing we said tonight, was we'd like to pull those and use those and put them through this process first. So this is that heads up time, well, hey, 2's coming. So 2's coming in June. So that way you can give whatever direction you'd like based on this calendar notice. And we're gonna go back to the school board and vet these through all of our directors so that we get all of the collective hive mind of MCPS on these section 2. And then we'll put that in the proposed section. And then that way, between your direction and the staff, the proposal, hopefully we're close, but if not, you have a month to come in, ask questions, and get some more information. And then at that first read, if you're still not happy, kill it. It's your policy.
We could also form a committee, and you and I can go through this stuff. We could have 2 board members there. It's not a FOIA violation. I'm down. I'm serious. You can go with it. Come on, we'll go through it. But we can do 2, you and me. Let's get it done.
We can have 3, I think, on a committee.
Let's go ahead then.
Next agenda item.
Is it really?
Thank you for your patience, everyone.
I wonder.
I think that would be perfect.
I'm there. I'm there. Love the policy manual.
Are there any members that want to make a motion to suspend?
I don't see a reason that we need to suspend 154, because as I read it and as I understand what's being proposed, we're following 154. So why would we suspend 154 if we're following it?
Well, what you just presented was a little different from what's on the calendar, what you just presented, unless I misunderstood, is closer to
Everything there's 519. That's today. Those were presented to us today. We're gonna have a first read on 6/16, which is 4 weeks later.
We're actually going to do the proposal on 616. So I'm coming back to you with division rewrites, and we're going to put them in that new column for
Pushing it all
two.
the way back to 616? Okay.
Yep. And then that gives you that whole, we're trying to really embrace what y'all wanted and let you get into this policy manual and have at it. But because 2 was so voluminous, we wanted to make sure that you all were really comfortable with it. And so because of that summer break, it looked like this would be a great time to do this one. It's not a real big one compared to the rest of the manual, but it's a good time for us to get the process worked out before we head into the fiscal section in section 3. And hopefully that'll move a little quicker. And we won't have that month off in July going into section 3, so we'll pick up some pace, but this will give us some time to kind of scaffold the process a little bit as we move forward.
Okay. Yeah, even as written, I think it follows 154 from my understanding of 154, but maybe I'm missing something.
Any other questions for Ms. Bressler on this item? Okay. Moving on. The administration brings back policy 1-5.1 to establish school board committees. Leah Bressler, School Division Compliance Officer, is available for questions if needed. When we first saw this draft, and I'm not looking at the calendar, so I don't remember when it was, but it was a while ago, it did iterate specifically the creation of a disciplinary committee. That's something that board members have been talking about since I've been on the board, and just kind of given how disciplinary issues have been brought to us, it might be time to establish that committee. However, other boards have a multitude of committees. Mr. Roberts just suggested a governance and policy committee, finance and audit, legislative priorities, again, discipline, capital projects, and a collective bargaining communication committee all may be appropriate things for us to establish, and I just wanted to get a sense of where you all were
So I'll start
on this.
So I am fine with all of these committees except the disciplinary committee, because I believe as a board, we should be hearing disciplinary hearings related to our students. Each one of us brings a different perspective, a different background, and hears things differently than the other, which has allowed us to make, in my opinion, for the biggest part, good and fair decisions related to our students. And I don't think, I'm just telling you, for me, a committee of 3 of any of us, I would not trust it. I'll just put it that way, would not, so. And that I say not trust it is because not enough ears in the room to hear from our students and their parents and from the administration what the situation is.
Can I
Dr. Guidry?
respond? I appreciate that concern. Just something to consider. I don't know if this would affect your decision, but my understanding, and I didn't review it right before the meeting, is that if the school board created a subcommittee to hear discipline cases, that there is additional due process that needs to be built into the disciplinary process. So what would happen is that the case would go before that subcommittee, and if the child or the parents are not happy with the outcome of that decision, then they can appeal to the full school board. So there is I understand your concern about trust, but there is additional due process And if there, you know, if there are concerns about the outcome of the deliberations of the subcommittee, then there would be an appeal to the full board, and the full board would hear the case. If I'm remembering correctly, that we would need to do that. Our expulsion and suspension policy doesn't allow for that at the moment because we've not had that committee. So we would need to build that due process into that policy if we were to adopt a subcommittee.
Work for me.
And I'm going to agree. I do think each one of us brings a little something different to the table, and our chair has been very vocal and gracious about when one of us can't be there. As long as we've got a quorum, then we move forward. So I do think that if it's an issue of having to be there at too many discipline hearings, I do think this whole board has been very understanding and able to move ahead as long as we have enough people. But each one of us have had a different walk of life and bring a different view to our student matters. Now, some of them are cut and dry, but a lot of them, each one of us help us understand a different way of looking at something. To me, that's important. And there's a lot of issues with being on the school board that each one of us have a strength to. And sometimes the discipline and the students and the community is one of our strengths. So, and you can say, well, then you could be on that committee, but I do think we've had many discipline hearings that our minds have been changed by hearing what our fellow board members have to say. So I think that's important.
Other board members? Mr. Roberts?
I'll let Dr.
Oh, sorry.
Roundtree go.
All right, thanks. Yeah, so I'm in agreement with having committees for all these. Sounds good, with the exception of discipline committees. We've pushed a lot of we've delegated a lot to the building administrators with some of our newer policies that we revised, allowing for discipline up to 10 days for various activities that had been coming before us. So I feel that we're going to have far fewer items that come before us, but when removing a kid's opportunity for education in the classroom for extended periods, I feel obligated to be involved in that decision. That's what I was elected to be here for. Even those students that we've delegated authority down to the building level, we've also are working towards opening up facilities at Montgomery Central in order to continue providing that educational activity inside the classroom. So that's one thing that I am fairly passionate about, that if we're removing a student for an extended period from the classroom, the 7 of us should be involved in that decision.
So I'm going to have a floor motion then. I'm going to move that we adopt the policy after we pull the disciplinary committee out of the document.
Well, if I may, I kind of thought we were just talking about the one certain committee, but if we're grouping it together as a whole, I believe capital projects is another one of the things that should be discussed as a board. I mean, that's something that we make a decision. We talk to the Board of Supervisors about. We all may have different views on what's important for the next project and where we put our funds. Again, that's what we're elected to do. So, I feel like the discipline, the capital projects, our legislative goals, again, that's a board decision. That's not just a few of our thoughts and processes, because we all think differently of what's important opposed to what someone else may think. And I understand the differential of trying to get certain board members, so we kind of cut down on some of the meetings, but I think those are things that we've managed to this point. And we elected for Dr. Gimple to be our liaison for collective bargaining communications. So I don't know. I guess for me, I don't understand the need for committees. The policy and governance, yes, because I do believe that's a huge undertaking. And I'm fine with having a committee to go through those and appreciate you all's willing to take part in that. Because I do think with your calendar, we have an opportunity to have something to say about that. But these other committees, I don't know that that's more of a done deal. When that decision's made, it's done. So, I don't know. I would have to vote no if that came down to a vote.
So when we have a committee, it doesn't mean that that person on the committee is making the decision. It still comes before the board. It just gives that, it's a way for somebody to kind of spearhead it and get it moving along. It's still presented to everybody. Everybody still gets a say at the end of it. But it's just a way to group it together and get somebody to shoulder into some of these things. And it also says may. It doesn't say we have to do all of these things. But if somebody wants to put their hand up and say, hey, I've got a little bit of time, can I go ahead and start working, getting this thing moving? That's the way I see this.
And for an area of that magnitude, I would be, fine with something like that. But like I said, a decision-making committee, I don't agree with that. I don't agree with, and the discipline, that's a decision-making. That's a group of people that make a decision on it, and unless the parents were to come and do an appeal. So some yes, some no. So for me, and if the capital projects was a committee that you brought forth a list, but isn't that what we have in our administration? Isn't that what they do already?
I could probably answer that. So right now, we have a capital project committee that's developing the CIP. And so you would just attend those meetings, right? And you'd be able to report back during your board member committee reports. You would just say, I attended the last 2 CIP development meetings and they're making good progress, and give whatever details you want. It's not that you're making decisions on behalf of the board. It's just that you're a part of that committee. Same thing with like collective bargaining communication. We have communication meeting tomorrow. If someone wanted to be on that, they would attend that meeting with between the MCEA and the school division. Then you would report out on that particular meeting. There's no decisions to be made. It's just that you're part of that committee, and oversight is all. Same thing with finance and audit, right? Once we develop those committees, you're just reporting out on the progress of the division, even though we also give you reports on these at some basis, right? You're going to get the CIP, you're going to get those kinds of things, but it's you as a board member serving to just provides additional oversight. That's all.
So can I ask how often these committees meet and what time?
Yeah, it varies, right? It varies by the committee. Like the collective bargaining communication is once a month. I think Mike's group is probably meeting a little bit more than that because they're kind of under the gun here. But then they'll continue to meet, and it may be just once a month as we go forward, just to discuss, the different projects that are going on and the progress that's taking place in those, right? And so then you all, when you come back here to a board meeting, you just give that report. Hey, during this meeting, we discussed these projects. Here's what's going on, and but you're not providing, like I said, you're not voting on it or anything like that. You're just attending those meetings and just providing, some board overview of them. So it depends on what committee. Some of them meet more often than others, and
these are mostly during the day, correct?
Yeah, for the most part, or right after work, because you have teachers involved with a lot of these too, and so they have to be after work. Like collective bargains at 5:30 tomorrow.
Okay.
Right. So.
I think for me, I was almost going to say committee for discipline, but then I hear Ms. Franklin, and she makes extremely valid points, because I think my mind has even been changed in a discipline hearing before. So I know we have an awful lot of them, and I know it's not a lot of fun, and I think we looked into it because of the amount and the time that we were having to spend on it, and I totally get it, but she makes a really good point. I think it's good that we all bring a different perspective to the table on that. I think my issue with some of these other ones that kind of concerns me is a line between the governance and the management. And I'm just a little concerned that there may be some people who are on these committees that might feel like they either and I'm just speculating, I'm not saying that it would happen, but because a board member is on a committee, I don't know if they would feel comfortable making giving some information or some statements during the meeting. Just, I don't want any of our administration to feel uncomfortable because of board members present, and not saying that they would, but I just risk the overstepping part because I do feel like we have hired these people and I trust them on their on their job and what they bring to us. And I do know, at least for me and Ms. Bond, I know that it would be very difficult for us to be able to do anything extra because of when these are and during the day. So I feel like part of the board might feel like it's not very fair because technically we wouldn't be able to really serve on them, as opposed to maybe other members who have more free time that could do it. Not to say that they shouldn't because they have more free time, but I was just trying to throw my thoughts out there.
So I don't have like I said a second ago, let's pull the discipline committee out of there. And again, this is not mandatory. This is if somebody's got some time and they want to be part of this, awesome. It's just a way to help facilitate it. It's not mandatory. It still comes before the board. And the way I read this is the board still would have to say, go ahead, you can be on that committee. It's a way to get things moving.
So can I give a little history? So the board did have board members who participated on committees, calendar, insurance, and several others. I was on the insurance committee for several years, and I would have to run from work to get here in time to be at that meeting. And for some reason, at some point, a board decided they didn't want to do those anymore, and they went away. But to your point about folks not feeling comfortable with having a board member there, let me tell you, during those insurance committee meetings, and sometimes I would interject things that the board had suggested or thought about, folks had no problem telling me what they felt about that. And it was also good for me to bring back to the board when we were having those discussions, what the conversation was during the committee meeting to help them understand just how strongly the committee felt about a decision that they had recommended or not recommended.
Okay, so I probably then can support if you want to pull discipline, and as long as it's not mandatory and everything from a committee comes back to the board for approval, then that's something that, and, no one gets upset for those of us that cannot be on any of them, because I cannot.
Absolutely not. You know what I'm going to say. I'm going to volunteer for the policy.
Yeah, it's just,
And what you're saying.
this can't,
Yes.
so.
Okay. So a long time ago, I was a proponent of having committees. One of the ideas of having the committee is that you deepen relationships with the school board office, with directors. And this is different than the way what I imagined was happening before, where you had some advisory committees. These would be different than advisory. Well, some of them were advisory. Were they, like the calendar, isn't that a accommodation?
Sorry. Okay.
Okay. So these would be different than the advisory committee appointments. If we form these would be direct relationships between the school board members who are on and the directors and the administration who would work together in these areas. That's my understanding of how committees, because I saw some training from VSBA on committees, and that's one of that's what they were advocating, is that actually is supposed to encourage relationships with directors in the central office. I mean, my suggestion is maybe not to put all of these on, and if people are going to be on these committees, then it would be a formal process where they would, because it has to be the will of the board who's going to be on. And they report back to, it's very specific language that's used with the committees, that they report back to the board. In no time can these, I mean, it's different with the discipline if you go through that process because of due process, but in general, we make decisions as a board, as I was just pressing a little while ago, not as individual members or even if it's a subcommittee. So my recommendation is if we're going to do it, maybe not do all of them, and see how it goes, because I know that you're implementing with the finance and audit, you're putting together your own committee or a process right now. I mean, I guess a school board member could be on that. So I don't know if we want to try a couple of committees and then see how they go before putting them all on, because it wouldn't make a whole lot of sense to have all these committees and they're just not functional if we put them in the policy.
So I would like to make a motion that we approve all committees that are listed except for the disciplinary committee.
I just made that motion.
Did you?
You can
Okay,
second it.
I
Thank you
seconded
very
it.
much.
I seconded it.
Finally.
Okay. Okay.
Been hanging out here all.
I have a motion and a second. Is there any other discussion?
Are you suggesting that we swap out this sample policy, or we build these committees into our existing policy?
Say we just pull the discipline policy out of there. That would bar that from being created. The rest of it, again, it's volunteer. If somebody wants to do it, put your hand in the air.
I don't have the existing policy in front of me, so.
So could that be amended to say that we will add any of these policies except for the disciplinary committee?
I'm fine with that.
I
We can
made
just
the
say
motions, I can't do
discipline
it.
is barred.
Or just leave it off the list.
Or leave it off the list, not create further problems. It's almost like I made a motion on this about 25 minutes ago.
Oh, welcome to this world.
So we would add the establishment of these committees to our existing policy. And then members can reach out based on their interest to participate.
To clarify, is it 2 members? Correct?
No more than 2 members per
committee?
Per committee.
Okay.
So this is basically a replacement of 1-5-1. And I think we should just replace 1-5-1 with this as written. The other one says that there are no committees and basically says that special committees can be created, or temporary committees can be created by the chair and the board, similar to the wording of this policy by the VSBA. It's more verbose and breathy, but
Okay, so we have a motion and a second on the floor. I call for the vote.
is the motion actually to replace the
To
the whole,
adopt, yes.
the whole policy, adopt the whole policy in replacement of 1-5-1?
Correct.
Ms. Reed, will you please call the roll?
Ms. Bond?
Yes.
Ms. Franklin?
Yes.
Dr. Guitry?
No.
Ms. Pardon?
Yes.
Mr. Roberts?
Yes.
Dr. Roundtree?
Yes.
Ms. Purcell?
Yes.
6 in favor, 1 opposed.
Yeah, it was in writing.
Is in writing. Okay. Motion carries. Okay, so, Ms. Bressler.
I think we've mooted this last one
Okay.
with our earlier decisions with the process. So I don't think we have to go through these right now. We're gonna bring back
Good.
just a whole new thing for you on, start the whole thing in June for you.
Excellent.
That's okay with you guys?
Thank you, yes.
I'd really like to keep talking about it. I don't know. Thank you for your hard work and for being here tonight. Does that mean we're moving on to unfinished business? Yes. Are there any items of unfinished business? Are there any items of new business? Are there any announcements?
Like to thank for our flyers to be distributed for our Sun Fun meals for the summer.
Any other announcements? I don't think we're meeting again until after graduation, so many happy congratulations to our graduates, and happy end of the school year to all of our students, staff, and faculty. Our next board meeting is June 2nd. Agenda prep will happen on Friday of this week. And I adjourn this meeting at 9:51 p.m.